If you're considering moving to Dripping Springs for the schools, you're definitely not alone, but here is a video about what nobody tells you about Dripping Springs ISD. Being one of the top-rated school districts in the state doesn't mean a thing if the structure and the culture of the school doesn't fit your kid. Too many families pick their schools based on test scores and what you find on things like niche.com or greatschools.org, and they never bother to ask, hey, what do we actually want this school to look like for our child? So if you're thinking to yourself, okay, this is my kid's future, I just want to get this part right, this video's for you. And as we start out, we may as well talk about the highs here. First of all, Dripping Springs is an A+ rated school, especially for the STEM programs. And a lot of people, STEM's really important right now. But beyond that, great fine arts, great athletics, and the college readiness is off the charts. But if I was sitting down with you as a friend instead of a realtor, this is what I would tell you. Let's take a look at Dripping Springs ISD behind the numbers, because here, at the end of the day, it is not all about STAR test results and what your kid's going to end up getting on an SAT or an ACT. The first thing is, Dripping Springs is a really big school district when you look at the number of kids. In Texas, it's a 6A high school, which is the biggest population segment of high schools that you can find. There's over 8,000 kids across all of the elementary schools, middle schools, and the one high school. And the thing is, it's still growing. In fact, we just passed a bond that's going to start construction of the second high school here probably next year in 2026. But the great thing is, even as big as the school is, it still has that feeling of you kind of know everybody because it's still a close-knit community. A lot of the teachers live either here in Dripping Springs or very close by. It's no shock when kids run across their teachers at HEB or somewhere out at Founders Day or something like that. So even though it's a massive school, it's not stuck in a town like Austin. You still have that small town feel here in Dripping Springs. And the other thing is, I used to be an educator, and I understand that a lot of times there's a big friction between parents and teachers and coaches and things like that. In Dripping Springs, that doesn't seem to be the case. Parents are really involved. We've got a strong PTA across all of the schools. The booster clubs always have volunteers, and the parents show up for all of the events. They show up for football, volleyball, softball. They show up for theater. They show up for the dance shows. But because of that, it may not translate to you. It can feel super intimidating as a new parent coming into a new school district, not really sure how to plug in, but you see all these other parents doing all these things and you're like, wait, how do I actually pull this off? But at the end of the day, we get that with a lot of parents here, and I know a lot of people that are involved at the schools, and there's ways to ease yourself in and volunteer in small ways, just so you don't feel like an outsider at first. And the other thing that I know about the parents and the administration and the teachers and everybody else here is they're extremely welcoming with open arms. But the thing to remember here, from administrators to teachers to other parents, they are welcoming. We get so many people that are moving here that are new to the school district, trying to find ways to plug in like you might be, that they really have to be, and they've all been there themselves. Second thing I want to talk about is elementary schools. You really have to know your campus culture to kind of see, okay, where can I plug in? We've got a lot of elementary schools. There's more that are being built, but I'm going to talk through just a couple of insights that I've got on each one. Walnut Springs is one of the older elementary schools. It's more established. We've got a lot of legacy families, and there are really strong family ties to that school and to the teachers there. And with those ties, there's a really strong parent base just because the parents have been around for a long time. A lot of times they've seen 4, maybe 5 kids go through, if they've got large families, through the exact same elementary school. One that's really similar to Walnut Springs is Rooster Springs in the heart of Belterra. Again, it's been there a long time with Belterra, so you've got established families that have seen several kids go through that school. And again, really strong parent base, because Belterra is one of those communities that when people move in, they don't tend to move out until those kids and all of their kids have gotten through elementary school. The newest one for right now is Sycamore Springs, and it's in that same area just to the south of Belterra. Now, it's a little bit newer, so it's a little bit more tech forward, but because it's newer, that culture is still trying to find that rhythm. We've only had really about 3 classes that have gone through it at this point, and so that culture is still finding its way. Then you've got Dripping Springs Elementary, which is also an older school, and they have a lot of staff that's been there a long time, and including administrators. So again, a little more of a school that's got really deep roots in the community, and again, people have gone through, for several of their kids will have gone through that exact same school. And again, like I said, we're still building. There's another elementary school that's going to open in 2025. It's in Headwaters. It is going to be a brand new campus inside of the neighborhood, and that's what the district's going towards. Like I mentioned earlier, Rooster Springs is inside of Belterra. Sycamore Springs is just south of Belterra. This new one is going to be inside of Headwaters, and then when they build Anarene and Double L, there's going to be a new elementary school inside that one as well. So you've got all these possibilities, and you've got neighborhoods that feed to all the different schools. So instead of asking yourself, oh, what's the best school, and going and running to the rankings and all of that stuff because they're ranked so high, all of them, it's better to ask, hey, what best fits the culture of my family and my kid? Is your kid extremely artistic? Are they very structured and need that throughout their day? Are they special needs? Do they need to be in specific advanced placement courses? Those are the kind of questions you definitely need to ask, and you're only going to get the answers by going directly to those schools and talking to the administrators. Or if you can connect with parents ahead of time, whether it's a local Facebook group or something else, ask those questions of the parents. Hey, if you've got a kid, again, that's very artistic, find some of those artistic parents and find out, what do you recommend for your child? After all, and this is the same across all of the schools, the biggest mistake you can make is going, oh, this is an A+ campus, this is going to be a perfect fit, when in reality that fit comes from alignment, not from achievement. All right, now let's talk about middle schools, because we all know when kids go from elementary to middle school, that is a huge shift. Everything changes, not only in their mind, but in their day-to-day lives. And again, being a former teacher, I know middle school is where a lot of kids start to struggle, not just in Dripping Springs. Everywhere in the world, there's a lot of transitions, a lot of changes that are happening at that point. So in Dripping Springs ISD, you've got Dripping Springs Middle School and you've got Sycamore Springs Middle School. Both of them offer pre-AP classes. They both have really strong athletic programs across the board. They're also both going to have really good fine arts programs, elective programs. You know, again, going back to the career and technology, you're going to be able to find different programs at both schools, but again, equally strong programs. And then one of the other things that we find here is that with that transition to middle school, the Dripping Springs Ed Foundation does a ton of work and raises a lot of money just to help with that student support as they transition to that next stage in life. But here's where the nuance comes in. And it's not just in Dripping Springs, it's any district that has multiple middle schools. Some campuses are going to have a little bit more on the fine arts side. Some teachers, and again, not in Dripping Springs specifically or uniquely, some teachers are going to challenge kids more academically, and then other teachers are going to be able to support kids with a little bit of a softer approach. You likely already know this, but if your kid tends to be a little bit more reserved, a little more creative, or maybe even has some learning differences, it's worth having a conversation, not just in your family, but also with people in the community and teachers and administrators about where they're going to feel seen and not just a place to put them. And in terms of me helping out with that, you can talk to administrators. I'm always going to recommend to go to the schools, not only during the year, but also in the summer if you've got time. So visit the schools multiple times, talk to different people, heck, talk to the janitorial staff. You'll get a ton of insight from them. But if you need some more specific help, reach out to me. I've got a lot of families that I've helped move here with kids in the schools, and every one of them is the most gracious family you'll ever meet, and they're more than happy to talk to you about any questions or concerns that you might have about your kid in a specific school you're looking at. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the high school, because, man, talk about a ton of opportunities in Dripping Springs, but also talk about pressure. Dripping Springs High School is an absolute powerhouse, not only in athletics, but academics, fine arts, CATE programs, CATE programs, everything. Dripping Springs is a powerhouse, and it is one of the reasons that people move to this district for the high school. Now, this is going to change a little bit. Like I said earlier, we're about to start building our second high school, but I don't expect the excellence to end at the second high school. I think it's just going to be two high schools that are continued powerhouses. Some of the big things you're going to be able to find at the high school, you're going to have dual credit courses, college level AP courses. You're going to find a nationally recognized journalism program, state qualifying level athletic programs, FHA, Ag, and FFA programs that rival small colleges. If you haven't seen the Ag department, holy cow, and only a little bit of a pun is intended there. You're also going to find top tier band and performing arts. And like I mentioned earlier, we have an insanely highly ranked STEM program. And then beyond all that, the kids have opportunities to get into real world type classes, veterinary science classes, business classes, audio video production. Your child can actually graduate from Dripping Springs High School and then go take the state licensing exam for their real estate license. So here's the thing to remember. The opportunities are huge. They're vast. There's so many of them. But at the same time, you've got a highly competitive school, so the pressure is also vast. Some students absolutely thrive in that environment. but other ones are going to really struggle. And this is where I often talk to some of my parents that are coming in with kids, and I ask them, look, does your child do well in a large format school like that? Or do they need a little bit smaller classrooms? Do they need a smaller campus? Do they need the opportunity not to have so many people to get lost in? Because if that's the case, I would recommend not going to Dripping Springs. I would actually recommend checking out Johnson City, maybe Blanco, maybe Wimberley. Wimberley's a great school. I think it's a 4A high school now. Blanco and Johnson City are 2A high schools. So we've got smaller schools and communities that are really close around here that are still commutable to Austin. But again, if you don't know that your child would necessarily thrive in a huge school environment, and again, with over 8,000 students in the entire population, probably close to 4,000 in the high school alone, that's the size of a small college. So that's a real good conversation to have, again, within your family. Where do you think your child is best going to thrive? Here's some of the questions you might ask. Does your child need a district or a school that's absolutely going to stretch them, that's going to push them? Or do they need something that's a little more in the terms of some consistency? Okay, I understand this, and this are my next steps. I don't want to necessarily have to think outside of that. I don't want to be stretched beyond that. So here's some questions you can ask. First of all, does your child thrive in an environment where they are absolutely stretched to the maximum? And do they just crave that ability to challenge themselves? Or do they need somebody that's going to support them just a little bit more consistently, and they need a little bit more of that structure underneath them? Do they need somebody, and when I say somebody, I mean, administrators and teachers. Do they need somebody that's going to give them just a consistency in a day-to-day so that they know what they're getting into in all of their classes and their day-to-day work? Or do they need the ability to explore outside of what some people might consider like a normal classroom environment? And also, what you really need to understand about Dripping Springs ISD, because it's such a large school that pushes excellence, college isn't the only path here. The high school completely supports the trades. They completely support workforce prep. So the fifth thing here, let me talk to you a little bit about what I hear from families after they've been here a couple of years. I've heard this: we picked the school because of the house that we wanted. In other words, they picked their house first and then their children went to the school based on the zoning. But what they wish they had done, instead of just going to the admin building and registering their kids for classes and finding out what was available to them, what they wish they had done is actually toured campuses before they picked the house. What ends up happening, the longer you're here and the more other parents that you meet, you're going to talk to them about the experiences that their kids are having in different schools, and sometimes it'll make you kind of rethink, did we buy the right house, or is our kid in the right school? Another thing I've heard a couple of times is, after that first semester, I've heard parents say, you know what, it's not clicking for our kid. I don't know if we made the right choice coming to Dripping Springs. But after that second semester, what they find out is, just like their kid is new to the school, finding new friends, they're meeting the teachers and the admin, and they're just kind of trying to find their way to fit in. The other thing that's happening is that the counselors and the teachers and the admin are actually getting to know the kid. And so what they find that happens is, where the first semester they're like, oh man, did we make a mistake? The second semester they're going, wow, this place is amazing. The counselors know exactly who my kid is. The principals know who they are. I know the principals. The principals have talked to me. The teachers all know me. And so if you're here and you find yourself, in that spot at the end of that first semester, don't freak out. That's really normal. Again, these are big schools and it's a little bit difficult sometimes for the kid to just find their place. And at the same time, it's also difficult for the teachers to really get to know those kids like in the first month of the school year. Another thing that I hear a lot is, wow, we had no idea how insane the athletics and booster club culture was. And every one of them, if their kid is in athletics, they're like, look, it's awesome. The parents love to support. The booster clubs are really strong, but it is a lot. It is intense. If you're coming from out of state, at the end of the day, you are moving to Texas, and in Texas, we like our sports. If your child is in sports, get ready, because it doesn't matter where you're coming from. You think but then when you get here, everything takes it up just another notch. And then, as I mentioned, we've got new elementary schools coming online. We've got a new high school that's about to start being built. One of my clients said, you know what, I wish we had done a little bit more research when you told us about school boundaries possibly changing, because their boundaries changed. Their kid really liked the school, but the school district wanted them to go to a different school. Now, they got it all worked out, but if you're coming here, understand, when you've got new schools that are being built and being built every 2 or 3 years, the school boundaries things can change, you need to plan accordingly. And when you get down to it, if you were a personal friend of mine and we were talking about this, I would tell you again, get rid of thegreatschools.org, niche.com. Dripping Springs is an excellent school district. We know that. Those rankings, just get rid of them. I'm going to tell you at that point to get deeper than the stats. That's what I've been talking about this whole time. Because look, what's right for, if I had kids, what would be right for them could be wrong for your kids. What's right for your kids could be wrong for any other number of families that are out here. So you've got to get deeper into the schools. You've got to understand what the culture of these schools is like and stop worrying about the stats. Again, Dripping Springs has great schools. That's why people move here. Okay, that's what the stats are good for. Now, when you're exploring where you're going to live, you really have to understand the nuance from campus to campus. Now that I've mentioned that probably more times than you're comfortable with, let's talk about number 6. How do you actually pick the right school? The first thing is talk to other parents. Don't just talk to school administrators. School administrators may have one vision of the school, parents may have a completely different vision. Again, I tell people all the time, if this is where you want to move because you know the schools are good, you want your kids to grow up in a semi-rural suburban surroundings, okay, great. Now get on Facebook. Start finding all these Dripping Springs groups. Find the people that you would hang out with normally, whether it's a mom's group on Dripping Springs. I'm going to tell you guys, avoid Dripping Springs neighbors. That place, oh my gosh. Anyway, you're going to get on there eventually. I'm just giving you fair warning. But find church groups. If you're partial to a certain church, find church groups. Find, if you enjoy off-roading, there's Jeep groups. Okay, get in the Jeep groups, because at the end of the day, you're going to have these moms and dads that are off on weekends Jeeping, but during the week, they're dropping their kids off at school. So talk to the people in those forums, the groups that you're naturally going to be drawn to. Go look on Facebook in Dripping Springs and find the groups in there, and then engage the people on that group. Hey, I'm moving to Dripping Springs. We've got a child, 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old. We're trying to decide what schools to put them in. Would you give me the good, the bad, and the ugly about where your kids are? I promise you the people here are going to tell you the truth. Another thing I would really, really recommend you do, and again, you're not going to find this on greatschools.org, ask the school district about teacher retention. Because, if the teachers are happy and they love the school, chances are the kids are going to be happy and they're going to love going to school also. If you've got a school that's changing teachers, and by the way, this isn't just for Dripping Springs ISD. If you end up in Wimberley or Blanco or Johnson City, or you live in Dallas, you should always ask about teacher retention. Find the happy teachers. You're going to find the happy kids. Another thing, and this, you kind of have to go to the actual school for this. Find out what type of learners thrive there. Have a great understanding of the environment that your child thrives in, and then find out from the administrators, is that the type of school setting that they have set up? And then the last one of these, this could be a gut check for some of you. Be really, really honest about your child's needs. Again, when I was a teacher, not all parents were. And so be aware of what your child actually needs, not really what you hope they become or what you hope that they do in their future. Really be dialed in, talk to your child, and ask them, hey, how are things going now in the school that you're at? What do you like? What do you not like? What do you think that you need moving forward? Honest conversation like that with your child is going to give you an insight to them that's going to actually allow you to talk to an administrator and talk to other parents and find out if that elementary or that middle school or that high school is going to be right and it's actually going to suit your child. And here's where all this is coming from. You have the ability to move your family to Dripping Springs. And that sounds elitist, it sounds snotty. It's really not. People here are salt of the earth people. They love people around them. They love the school. They love the town. They love being here. But you have the ability, out of anywhere in the world, you're going to move your family to Dripping Springs. And it's going to be an amazing environment for your child regardless of where they go. But again, just like our schools are all rated very, very well, your child's going to be in a great environment and they're going to get supported. But if you can take it from an A+ to an A++ or an A+++, I think that's 3 of them. Anyway, you get my point. If you can find the surrounding, the environment that's going to suit your kid best here within the Dripping Springs ISD, it's going to make all the difference in the world.